The free Photoshop course that you're about to watch is just a small part of our Adobe Graphics full course bundle. So if you also want to master Adobe Illustrator with my teaching style and also be able to acquire your certificate of completion, you can tap the first link in the description right now and get your access with a fraction of cost. Also mentionable that this course is brought up to you by the Takeoff College, the smartest alternative currently available to the traditional education. With all that being said, I'm very excited to get started, so let's go. Hey everyone, we are getting started with Adobe Photoshop. So, before anything, we should talk about what Adobe Photoshop actually is. So what is Adobe Photoshop? Adobe Photoshop is an editor software, but an editor of pictures and images. And that is what we basically work on and work with in Adobe Photoshop. So a lot of the times these questions come at me that what is Photoshop, and most importantly, what is the difference that Photoshop has with other editing softwares such as Adobe Illustrator, which is also included in the Takeoff College courses. But this question is a very common question, and they ask, why is Adobe Photoshop separated from Illustrator and what is the difference between them? So here we have a very big conceptual and identical difference between these two softwares, and that is that Photoshop is a raster graphics editor. So this is very important. This is a very important concept actually. We have raster graphics and we have vector graphics. So how do they actually work? I said that Photoshop is mainly used for photos and pictures and images. So whenever we have an image, let's go through the details and the identity of an image and how images work. Whenever we have an image, the entire image that we see and we use and we share and whatever is basically something like this. So we have it here. As you see, we are seeing this smiling face. And how images are created is that in images, there is unlimited, actually limited, but I'm talking about, there's lots of them. That's what I mean. But there's limit to them. But we have all these small squares, so there's plenty of them. We have all these very, very small squares that each contain a certain color, and all of them squares coming together will create us a graphic, will create us a design, and this is what we call a raster graphic or a raster design. So this is basically how rasters work. Any image is created out of these squares, and any image that is created out of these squares is called a raster graphic. So there's a very important point about these raster designs, and that is we have limitations. We have sometimes very restrict limitations with their sizing. So whenever we have this very small icon and we want to scale it, we want to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and for example, print it on an entire A3 paper or something like that, we will have decreases in the quality, as you see. So this is how it will start to actually look like when it is small and we're making it bigger and bigger and bigger. And vice versa. Whenever we have this very big item and we want to make it small, we will have problems with this quality thing. But in vector term, we do not have that, because how vectors work is that they work with math and they work with mathematics, and there's no such square inside them. There actually is when we are exporting the design, but when we are designing it, there's no such thing as sizes or limits or something like that. And vector designs are basically the designs that we want to use in plenty of different sizings. For example, our logo. We may be using a logo inside this fav icon over here. And as well, we may also be using the same logo inside a billboard. You know what I'm saying? So that is the concept that you need to be familiar with. We have more flexibility with quality and sizing and same kind of stuff in Illustrator. I hope that after watching this entire course of Adobe Photoshop, you also be heading over to our Illustrator course inside the Takeoff College. That also is a very useful kind of tutorial to be watching and to be interacting with. So that's basically it. So we have a raster graphics editor over here, probably one of the most famous and one of the most popular ones. As you see, popular editors, industry standard for photography, design, and digital art, Adobe Photoshop. This is how it introduces it, you know. And yes, so we have it. And in order to get started with Adobe Photoshop, as you probably know, first you need to have it installed on your computer. So in order to do that, you can go to adobe.com and the official Photoshop page that Adobe offers. And here you can save 40% on Photoshop for the first 6 months. And as you see, you can see the pricings and see the plans that Adobe offers you. So we have for individuals, students and teachers, and teams, which you can be exploring and navigating through, and eventually choose between them and get your Adobe Photoshop. We skip the installation part as it is very, very easy. It's just a setup file that you open and you click a couple next, and that's it. You wait and your Adobe Photoshop is installed. So we skip that part and we get directly onto our Adobe Photoshop currently 2023, which is installed here, and we are going to get started with it. Okay, so in order to get started with Adobe Photoshop, just like any other software on your computer, you just need to double click on it and wait a little bit, and it will be opened in your computer. So as you see, this is what we got. It says, welcome to Photoshop. And this is the kind of looks that we get over here. So here you'll see a list of those latest projects that you have been working on. By clicking on any, you will be able to open it up and make your edits with and continue actually your previous projects that you've been working on. You also can see a new file over here and the open. So these two buttons are available and very important when we're getting started. But if you didn't see them, because you may be using a different version of Adobe Photoshop and that may not include these two buttons, you also can always access these two buttons, so the new file and the open, through the file tab that we have over here. So we can always come to file new or file open and get the same functionality that we get from these two buttons. So what these buttons do, open is obvious, so you click on it and it will open up a window, an open window and you will be able to navigate through your computer and go find one of the projects that you've been working on, select it and click open. And by clicking new file, you will be able to create an entirely new project. And that's actually what we are going to do right now. So as you see, by clicking on this new button or coming to file new or pressing Ctrl N, this new document window will be opened for you, and you will be able to create your first ever project over here using this window. So this window offers pretty much a lot about getting started with Photoshop and starting our project. So here we have tabs, and these tabs include presets, the sizing presets and the setup presets of our new project. We can use photo presets, print, art and illustration, web, mobile, film and video, and all of them are available to us. And inside each you can see plenty of options. So for example, in print we have A4, A6, A5, as you see, all those international paper sizes. And in web, for example, we get different desktop screen sizings. We have iMac 27. We have web small, web most common, web large, web medium. As you see, all of these are available. We have MacBook Pro 13, MacBook Pro 15, and all those options are available for us. And for example, I come at a web and click web most common just to get these settings over here and teach you these, because these are very important. So here we have our project title or our project name. It is changeable afterwards, so don't be very sensitive on this, because as I said, it is changeable as we go ahead. But I say, for example, my first document. Here we have width and height, and here we have the unit to those numbers that we add. So we have pixels, inches, centimeters, millimeters, points, and picas. For example, we go ahead with pixels. So what pixels are is basically those squares that I talked about when I was talking about raster graphic. So I said pictures are created out of all these squares, all these colored squares, and those colored squares are called pixels. Here, as you see, we can enter any value for our width and height size. We also have orientation, which will show us that the numbers we added over here, how will they operate with each other, and how will be the end operation of us looking like. We also can switch between two orientations, so it will change the place to those numbers that we have entered over here. As you see, it will replace them with each other. We have this artboard check, which is again important. If I want to talk about it just a little bit, is that this sizing that you give will create you what we call an artboard. So it will create you a page or something like that, a white kind of screen with these sizes that you will be able to work on. By clicking this artboards thing, you will be able to get multiple of them inside one project. So the sizes that you give, for example, you have different pages to this project or anything like that. You will be able to turn this artboard on and freely use it, We also have resolution. Resolution is again about quality and all those kinds of things. But here we have two very, very common numbers that I want you to know about and I want you to memorize and use all the time. And these two numbers are, by the way, both in pixels per inch, not pixels in per centimeters. So that's also important. Set it to pixels per inch. And the two resolutions we have is one 300, which is basically for all documents and projects that are going to be printed. So whenever you are working on something for paper or anything like that, you should be using this resolution. So for any printing purposes and any project that is going to be printed, use 300 pixels per inch resolution. We also have 72, which is about all not going to be printed projects. So all projects that are going to be interacting with screens, with mobile screens, with desktop screens, web, and any kind of, that stuff. You can use 72 pixels per inch, and it is a safe resolution to continue with. We also have color mode, which is again very important. So let me talk about it a little bit. As you know, we have colors inside designs, and we are going to work with those designs. We are going to work with pictures and interact with pictures and photos. So they are going to include colors, plenty of colors, We have two main structures and two main modes that colors are created in. So the first one is basically RGB color, which will make all our colors, any color that it is, created out of red, green, blue. So it will mix all those three colors, red, green, blue, in order to get to the end color that we are going to talk about. This is color mode. We also have CMYK color, which is not available here because we said we want to work with web. But if I, for example, come to print and choose A4, as you see over here, we also have CMYK. So what CMYK will basically do is that it will create any color that we are using inside our project or adding into it. It will create all those colors out of 4 main colors, which are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So how do they actually work? As you have probably heard of in school or something, we have 3 main colors in the world, which are yellow, green, and blue. And every single color, they were yellow, red, and blue. Yes, I think. So it was yellow, red, and blue. Yes. And every color in the world that you see is created out of those 3 main colors. So this is what you were taught in school. But when it comes to lights and when it comes to screens, inside screens, the main colors and the creator colors are different. So here we don't have yellow, but instead we have green. And all colors, every single color that you see on screen is created out of a range of red, a range of green, and a range of blue, and a mixture of all these 3 colors. But inside printers, it's again different. So we don't have RGB. We have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black as the main creator colors inside all the printers we have in the world. Pretty much all the printers that we have in the world. And when it comes to printing, anything that we will print is going to be a mixture of these 4 colors. So everything that I talked about will eventually conclude in one sentence. If you are working for screens, choose RGB. And if you are working in order to eventually print your work, use CMYK. That's basically it. So this was about color modes. We also have bitmap, grayscale, and lab color, which are not that useful and important for now that you are just getting started. And we also have background contents controllable over here. But this, just like the project title, is changeable inside the project. So don't, again, involve yourself with this that much. So you can choose between them. We have white, black. We have a certain color choosable from here as your project background color, custom. We have transparent, and all of them selectable, but as I said, it is controllable when we are entering our project. So don't be that serious about it. Just leave it on white or whatever it is and click create, and your first ever Photoshop project will be created over here. After all, this is, as you see, what we got. So you may be facing something a little bit different to what I am, or you may not. But in order to make everything look exactly like mine is, you can come to Window, Workspace, and choose Essentials Default out of all these options. And all these windows and tools of yours will look exactly like mine does. So this is, as you see, what we get when we first open Adobe Photoshop and create our first ever project inside it. So this is actually very, very easy, as it looks very complicated at first. So all those Adobe softwares are a little bit like that. When you open them, it looks very professional and complicated. And in terms of professional, it actually is. All those softwares that Adobe offers are very complete, you know, and very professional, but they are not at all hard or anything like that. And you are going to see that as we go further. But I just wanted to announce you and alert you that we are going to have very, very easy work going on. So don't be scared or anything like that from this look that you get. I'm going to just introduce this workspace we have over here. So this is what we call it, a workspace. And I'm going to introduce everything that you see right now inside your Photoshop window. So the first thing that we have over here, as you see, is this toolbar. File, edit, image, layer, and all those settings, all those categories of settings that we have over here. And these are probably everything, you know. This toolbar is very powerful and has plenty of options and settings that we are going to be using inside the software. Here we have a settings bar, or whatever you may call it, that if I change my tool over here, as you see, so I select on different tools, this bar will change as my tool is changed, because this bar over here will provide us with multiple settings for each tool that we are selecting and we are using. I set tools, and yes, this is what we can say our tools window or our toolbar or anything like that, you know. And this is one of the most important parts we have. So this includes all the tools that we are going to be using in order to do different things inside our project. Here is the part that we can view our project and everything inside it through. And here we have windows. So all these windows are accessible from this window tab. So here, for example, I can say swatches. And as you see, it will lead to that particular window that I wanted. and it will provide me with all the windows that are available inside the software. And all these windows are addable or closable or anything like that from this tab, and are accessible through this window tab. And here we have plenty of them. We can close them, we can open them, we can change their place, as you see. We can pin them. We can pin them either like this or like this, so we can expand or collapse them. And as you see, these are what we call windows, which are, again, very important and useful inside our projects. So this is basically it. We got a bar over here offering different tabs. We have a settings part over here, and we have a toolbar. So whenever we select a tool, here we have the specific settings for that tool. Here we have our project, and here we have a couple windows and things like that we can be using inside our projects. So let's actually import something inside the Photoshop and work on it. So I come to File and click this time Open instead of New, because I am going to open an image from my computer. So I come to Pictures, select this image of mine and click Open, and wait a little bit until, as you see, the image is completely loaded. So this is an image, and let's actually get started doing our work. The first thing that I want to talk about, the first tools that I want to talk about and introduce to you are selection tools, which are very important. Why are selection tools important? First of all, is this selection the name to a certain tool? No. Selection is the operation that these tools offer, and there are plenty of tools that do selection. So selection tools is a group, is a category of tools that we are going to go through. And why are they this important as I'm highlighting them? Because whenever we are going to make a change to a certain part of our image or our project, I'd better say our layer in professional term, but as you are not familiar with layers yet, I say our image. So I want to make a certain change to a certain part of my image. And in order to do that, the first thing that I need to do, I am required to do, is to select that certain part of my project. So I need to first select that part, and then I will be able to make my changes on that part. And this is why all the selection tools in Adobe Photoshop are essential and are very, very important. So there's plenty of them. The first one that we can get is this marquee tools. So this is again a category for itself. Marquee tools are selection tools that offer us selection in a rectangular or elliptical, as you see, form. So through this icon and by right clicking, I can access all the tools inside that category or family. But through this icon, I can access rectangular marquee tool, as you see. And by clicking and dragging, you will see that it will allow me to select a certain part in a rectangular shape and a rectangular mode. As you see, we have all these dashes over here and this specific animation that they have. So this is how selection is defined and is shown in Photoshop. Whenever you see something like this inside Photoshop, it means that that certain part that is bordered with these kinds of borders is selected and is in selection mode currently. So this is what we have with rectangular marquee tool. We also have elliptical marquee tool, which basically allows us selection in ellipses. So it can either be a circle or anything like that. As you see, by clicking and dragging, I will be able to select. We also have single row marquee tool and single column marquee tool, which you can use in order to select a specific row or column, as you saw. So how it works is by clicking. So you click, and as you see, you get this specific selection, which is also very small, as you see. And yes, that's basically it. So I wanted to talk about a very important concept over here until we are not headed to the next part. So while we are in marquee, I wanted to mention that. And that is joining different parts of our selection. Very important. So for example, you have selected this bag or something like that through this marquee, which is not smart at all. So we'll talk about that. This is not a smart move to select this bag through this marquee tool. We have plenty of better tools for that purpose. But as you see, I select this and this part of the bag is left. So I want to again select this part, but as soon as I click, that part of my selection is gone. And how we fix that is by adding this selection to our previous selection. And how we do that is by pressing Shift from our keyboard, pressing the Shift button from our keyboard, and clicking and selecting. And as you see, the part will be added to our previous selection, and we will be able to expand our selection like that. So I can even come and choose elliptical marquee, so a different selection tool, and still press Shift, and the selection that is made with a different selection tool will still be added to my previous selection. Very important and very cool, as you see, right? So this is it. I wanted to just mention it. And another point that I will need to mention about selection is that whenever you have a selection and you want to cancel the selection, or what we call deselect, you can always come and right click on it and click deselect, or click once between or inside the selection area, and as you see, it will be deselected, or press Ctrl D from your keyboard and deselection, or removing a certain selection area will happen, and as you see, the selection part will be gone. So the next selection tool that we have, the next group of selection tools that we have are lassos. As you see, I have polygon lasso automatically selected here, but I right click and start with the lasso tool itself. So what lasso tool provides us with is this click and drag kind of selection. And how it works is that let's say, for example, I want to select this bag again. So I can click and drag on the borders of this bag. I'm holding my click. That's very important. So I am holding the click. And whenever I relieve the click, as you see, the selection will happen automatically. So this is how lasso tool works. As you see, we can create plenty of selections through lasso. That technique, or something like that I mentioned for uniting different parts of our selection, is also applicable over here with the lasso tool. So I selected this bag and this part is left. All I need to do is that I need to press Shift, and as you see, I'm holding both my click and the shift button on the keyboard. And I'm not relieving any of them. And after all, as you see, this part of my selection is added to the previous part of my selection. And this is how lasso tool works. We also have polygon lasso. So how polygon lasso works is that you will be clicking and you will not need to hold your click. You just click once and one point will be added to this polygon that we are creating. And as you see, with each click of you, one pin will happen, and this is what you can get with polygon lasso tool as a tool for selection. As you see, this is also very useful. This can be very useful, and this is basically how it works. We also have that method of uniteness over here, so you can always press shift and add a certain part to your selection. Very important to mention that we also have alt. So shift is for adding selection, alt is for removing a certain part of the selection. So if I press alt, and as you see, I come inside my selection and make another selection, I'm holding alt. And as you see, this part will be removed from my selection. As easy as that. So this is also polygon lasso, which is also another powerful selection tool that we have over here. We also have magnetic lasso. So how magnetic lasso works is basically, as you saw, we click once. So I clicked once and we don't do anything. We don't do any clicks or anything like that. We just need to pay attention to the direction that we are going, and magnetic lasso will choose the differences between colors, and it will detect the borders that our object have with the world outside. And as you see, it will work just like a magnet and do all the selection work for us. Just like that. So I double click, and as you see, this is how my selection is made. So this is very, very, as you see, accurate, dependent to the previous selection tools that we used to have. We also have that shift to unite and that alt to remove for this tool. So that's very important to keep in mind. Every single selection tool that we go through has that. So you can always press shift in order to add a part to your selection, or press alt in order to remove a part from your selection. The next selection tool that I want to talk about is Magic Wand. So this Magic Wand is accessible by right-clicking here. It may be on any of the two above tools. So you need to right-click and come here and choose Magic Wand over here. So this Magic Wand is basically about clicking, and by one click, it will detect all the similar colors that are around that certain part, and it will choose and select the entire of the colors, of the color matches that it finds over there. We also have these leaves over here, as you see, and we can click and select them as easy as that with this Magic Wand tool that we have got. We also have, I don't want to mention that, but we also have that shift and that alt thing. We have that for all the selection tools, and we can, for example, come here and choose all those leaves that we have inside our project, just like that, as easy as that. What else do we have? We also have quick selection tool. So quick selection tool is a very popular tool among all those old ages of Photoshop. This is also about clicking and dragging. And again, it is sensitive on colors and certain things. And it will be a very useful tool for quick selection, as the name says, you know. So it will provide you with a quick, pretty accurate selection. As you see, it may make some mistakes over here. And in order to bring back those mistakes, you just need to press Alt. And as you see, you will be able to choose and use the same tool in order to remove certain parts of your selection. You can also press Alt and right click and drag. So by doing that, by pressing Alt, right clicking and dragging, you will be able to change the size to that tool. So the size will be very important. For example, if it's this big, you won't be able to select these small parts of your bag, you know. You will need to press Alt, right click and make it smaller, drag to make it smaller, and then you will be able to make your selections way smarter, you know. So I press Ctrl D and go to the next tool that we have over here, which is Object Selection Tool. So Object Selection Tool is a very new one inside Photoshop. This is actually also very cool. I do really like it. So how Object Selection Tool basically works is that it will try its best to detect multiple objects that we have inside our image. And just by clicking on that object, it may be very slow, as you see, but it will be very accurate as well. So as you can see, by just clicking on the object, the selection will happen just like that, you know. For example, I click this part, and all you need to do is that you need to wait a little bit, and that work of object selection will happen automatically. That's it. So it also offers you and provides you with those detections that it has, and it also may be very popular and useful, although it's pretty new and it may not be that good yet, but it still is a very useful selection tool inside Adobe Photoshop. So this is basically it. These were all the selection tools that Adobe Photoshop provides us with, and they are going to be used a lot inside our actual projects and our real-world projects, as I said, because selection tools are very important, because we need to make a selection in order to make any further changes on different parts of our projects. The next tool that I want to talk about is this Move tool. So this is also essential, and how it works is, as the name of it says, it just moves different objects and different layers for us. So it just moves, you know. We can move different things by clicking on them and dragging them. So let's say that I have made this selection over here and I want to move it to a different part of my project. Although that is not a smart thing to do at all, because behind this bag there's nothing. So there will be a pure white or even probably transparent background. But I want to do that, for example, you know, I want to move this. So as you see, I click and drag and it will be moved just like that. And the white background, as you see, is visible over here. But I can move it to wherever I want. And that's basically how Move tool works. This is actually an interaction that this tool had with the selection tools, but this is basically it. So you click and drag and it will help you move different parts of your project and if the different objects inside your project as easy as that. The next very important thing when it comes to getting started with Adobe Photoshop is navigating through your project and different navigation tools that Photoshop offers you inside your project. So the first part to every navigation is probably zoom. Zoom in and zoom out. As you see, we have this zoom tool over here which can be used, so you can choose it and click, and by dragging to right it will zoom in. By dragging to left it will zoom out, as you see. Or you can click, and just by clicking it will zoom in. By pressing Alt and clicking it will zoom out, as you see. Zoom in, zoom out. So I'm clicking. Over here it is also definable, so you can choose zoom out as the default option or zoom in as the default option. And when it comes to navigating through our project when we are zooming in, we have these handles over here, as you see. We have these scroll bars that are usable in navigating to different parts of our image or our project, just like that. But we also have this hand tool over here, which is choosable, and you can click and drag. And as you see, this will basically do the work for you, and it will allow you to navigate through your project. But there's a very, very important point about these two tools. As you saw, we have zoom and we have hand, and you saw how we can use them both to navigate. But the very important point here is that zoom tool and hand tool take a lot of time from us for clicking on them, for navigating between them and using them. And navigation is a process that has to happen very quickly, when we are working in real world projects. And that's why we mostly actually use those shortcuts options that we have to these navigation tools. And how those shortcuts is, as I say, we have Control plus, so you press Control and the plus from your keyboard in order to zoom in, as you see. We have Control minus in order to zoom out, so Control plus, Control minus. We have Control 0 to get back to the default view and have the entire of our project viewable over here, so it is Control 0. So again, we have Control plus, Control minus, and Control 0. And when we are zooming, we also have hand. So what hand, the space bar on the keyboard. So what this space bar will do for us is that we will hold it, and while we are holding it, it will change our selected tool, whatever the tool is, to hand until we unhold the spacebar. So whenever we unhold the spacebar, we will be back to whatever tool we were using beforehand. So that is very cool. That is also about temporarily changing whatever tool that we are using to hand. And again, we can unhold it, as you see, and by unholding the scroll bar, the hand will disappear, just like that, because this is a temporary, what we call shortcut to this hand tool. So this is it. You can practice with them in order to get professional with navigating, because navigation is a very important thing when it comes to becoming professional in the software, because you need to navigate easily and navigate fast without destroying any part of your project. So you need to also do it safe. And these are the options that we have for navigation. As I said, we have Control minus for zoom out, Control plus for zoom in, the space bar for temporary hand tool. You need to hold the space bar. And we have Control 0 for getting back to the default view, what you may call, or this having the entire project as you see inside our view section. So that's it with navigation inside Adobe Photoshop.